Hello students, welcome to SRIRAM's IAS. Welcome to this newspaper analysis. In the absence of Utkarsh sir, I will be taking your newspaper analysis. So let's dive deep into it and see what the newses are. So last time also we have discussed about the Nepal issue, we have discussed about the Myanmar earthquake. Now those newses have developed, and in Myanmar about 1700 people are supposedly have died because of the 7.7 magnitude earthquake. Also in Nepal, the pro-monarchy protests are going on, but there are two important newses as far as the India-US relations are concerned, which are very important for us to consider. One of the important news is the civil nuclear deal which India has signed with the United States 2 decades back. Nothing happened till now. But recently, the Department of Energy of the United States of America has given permission to the private players in the United States such as Holtec to establish modular reactors, small modular reactors in India that will help in the technology transfer as well as boosting the manufacturing sector in India as far as the nuclear energy go. Also India requires nuclear energy. Now if you see, the population of India is around 150 crore people. Rampant urbanization is taking place. We need energy, and India is dependent on energy, on thermal. 70% of India's energy comes from the thermal sources by burning coal. Now if you burn coal, there is another problem. The other problem is related with environment. Too much of the carbon dioxide and other gases are released in the environment, and India is also a signatory to many of those important treaties and international mechanisms which deals with all these things. So if India has to keep a balance. India needs the energy, at the same time we need clean energy, and one of the cheapest way to produce energy is nuclear. France, for example, 70% of the energy in France comes from nuclear energy. It's a model which is an example throughout the world, but it also has its negatives. Nuclear energy also comes with the this one issue of security concerns. Chernobyl reactor and Chernobyl disaster, we all know about it. In the 1980s, in 1986 it took place, and still that Pripyat and other regions are abandoned region. Those cities, nobody can go to those cities. They have been left like that where the reactor was. So all these things can happen. There were concerns related to the liability in face of any accident. So who is going to take the responsibility, the operator or the supplier? In India, the legislation says that the responsibility would be transferred to the suppliers. But they were saying that no, suppliers cannot take the responsibility. Suppliers would be the people from the US, the companies from the US who would be transferring the technology, the companies from France who would be transferring the technology, or operators would be people who would be there on ground in India operating the nuclear power plant. So these concerns are there, but it's a good development. Also, not only in the nuclear energy front, but also on the diplomacy front, India and US are becoming more better friends, and the engagement is increasing. Nothing which has happened in last 20 years on the 123 civil nuclear deal between India and US, instantly something has happened. So let us dive deep and see what is there in the slide for us to understand. So this Department of Energy, this is something in the United States which takes care of all the nuclear activity which is taking place, the civil nuclear activities. It granted Holtec International. This Holtec International is a US company. Its founder is the Indian American person. His name is Chris Singh, and there is a plant of this company here, Holtec Asia. If you can, somewhere in Gujarat, this Holtec India plant is there. So because of this permission given by the Department of Energy, technology transfer can take place, and technology transfer will be done to Holtec Asia, Tata Consulting Energies Engineers Limited, and Larsen and Toubro. So L&T, Tata and Holtec, these three will be taking up the technology and making the modular reactors, small modular reactors here in India. So it will boost the energy sector, it will boost the manufacturing sector in India, and because of the technology transfer, India is going to get benefited with the international levels and international technology. So this is the place, the Dahej in Gujarat, where this facility of Holtec is available. So moving forward, 2-3 things are there. Government initiative and budget decisions for nuclear sector. If you see the budget decision for nuclear, 20,000 crore has been allocated. 20,000 crores have been allocated for a small modular reactor, and this is another thing, Bharat small reactors. Okay, so huge amount of money has been allocated already, and there is a growing demand. If you see 70% of energy demands in India are still on fossil fuel. So we have to come up with something. In India, only 3% of energy needs are fulfilled by nuclear energy. Rest by other sources, renewable and non-renewable sources. Majority of them are through fossil fuels. So we have to see this point. It's an important point because at the same time we have to balance it with the environmental concerns. So nuclear energy is a sustainable alternative. Of course, it's a sustainable alternative. Think about a situation, a small amount of fuel, small amount of material lights the whole cities, millions and millions of houses. It's a beautiful technology, but at the same time, the safety issues are a big concern. So it's a nuclear energy is a sustainable alternative. Nuclear power is concentrated and efficient energy source with minimal carbon emission. This is an important point, minimal carbon emission. So think about a situation where India shifts this 70% of energy which it is generating from fossil fuels to generation of 70% of energy from nuclear plants. Our INDC, ये पता है ना आपको, कुछ targets which India has pledged that India is going to fulfill, all these will be taken care of. At the same time, there will be less pollution in the air, especially around the Delhi and NCR region. जब ठंडों में यहाँ पर pollution बढ़ता है, तो it's not only Parali, but there are also things, the construction sites, the power plant, ओखला का जो है, सब कुछ बंद हो जाता है. तो यहाँ पर भी फ़ायदा होगा काफ़ी ज़्यादा. So it is a minimal carbon emission technology, and France produces 70% of its energy, 70% of its electricity from nuclear sources. So we have to learn from France as far as the security goes. How do they secure? Fukushima disaster हो गया था, जापान ने अपनी nuclear energy production बहुत कम कर दी उसके बाद. But Japan was also one of the country which was producing huge amount of energy through nuclear power plants. So expansion of nuclear power capacity in India, if you see, earlier in 2013 and 14, it was around 4,780 megawatts, which has increased to 7,480 megawatts. Almost doubled, almost, not exactly, but almost doubled now within what, 10 years. And it is projected to reach around 18,000 megawatts. Now these figures are very important for you in quoting in the examination when you are writing the answer. Okay. Electricity generation from nuclear plant grew from 34,000 million units to 47,000, almost 48,000 million units. So there's a huge increase, but at the same time it is not a satisfactory one, because we still need huge amount of energy through nuclear power plants, clean energy. But again, I would say security concerns are there. So future nuclear power goals in India, if you see, 2047 Viksit Bharat, after 2020 वाला जो अपना सपना टूट गया, देश को विकसित बना देने का, डेवलप्ड इंडिया वाला. So we have now a new goal of Viksit Bharat, and I am sure by this time, after 20 years, when we will be fathers and mothers, we will see Viksit Bharat. Global collaboration and partnerships. So India is enhancing nuclear partnerships with Russia, France and US. So as far as these things, the cooperation in the nuclear energy go, these are the three important countries from where India takes help. Okay, Russia, France and US. Russia and France, they have state-owned facilities, whereas US is more about private-owned facilities. So if we invite the technology from these countries, actually the private sector of the United States would be transferring it to us, whereas the public sector from France and Russia would be transferring to us the technology, material, whatever is required for producing nuclear energy. So proposed joint venture between NPCIL and NTPC, National Thermal Power Corporation, to develop more nuclear power facility. Now all these things are happening in India with the help of the partnership of countries like Russia, France and United States. These little informations are of great use for you. Okay, they may be asked in the examination. For example, they can write that we have a huge nuclear cooperation with Japan. No, we do not have. We have with these countries. So it may be confusing. Okay, on one hand, Japan is very technological savvy and you know, it's a very clean country, so we may think that, oh, we really have a deal with Japan, but nothing like that. We do have deal with these countries. Okay, safety and public perception. Of course, there were many oppositions from public. Kandankulam power plant was there. The President of India, Abdul Kalam himself visited there, inspected the whole plant, told to the local people, and it's there near his home in Kanyakumari. And he told people that it's safe, even if an earthquake comes, even if a tsunami comes, this plant will not be busted. Nothing will happen, no disaster will take place. The nuclear reaction which takes place inside the plant, it is very safe. The nuclear core cannot burst as it busted in Chernobyl. There are feet and feet of concrete which has been poured and steel which has been poured inside, but still people just does not agree to it. Okay, people does not agree to it. Internationally speaking, people like Bill Gates are in, who have now jumped totally into philanthropy, are a great advocator of nuclear energy. Somebody asked him whether you would allow your children to live near a nuclear power plant because of the safety concerns raised. He gave a very diplomatic answer by saying that surely I will not allow them to live near a thermal power plant. So that was a very diplomatic answer, but tells about his ideology as far as the nuclear energy go. So India's nuclear plant adhere to stringent safety protocols with radiation levels well below global benchmarks. All these things we have to see if we have to develop this technology. So we have already covered one important topic. We have three topics for today. The nuclear leap which India will be making with the cooperation of the United States. Then the Kathmandu protest, and third is the Trump's global tariff. What is this global tariff and all kind of tariff war which is going on? We will see. Now coming to Kathmandu, as we have already seen in the last class that there are pro-monarchy protests in Kathmandu in Nepal. People want their king back. Monarchy was abolished in 2008 because in 2005 when Gyanendra Shah of the Shah dynasty took up the chair of king of Nepal, he has diluted the parliament, he has stuffed the politicians in the jails, he has done all those things, and he has taken the total control of the country, which was opposed by people. People came on road, there was huge opposition, and finally he has to give back the power to the people, re-establish the parliament, and in 2008 the monarchy was abolished. He was living there as a commoner. But since 2008 till now, the socio-economic and political condition of Nepal is not good. If you see democracy being used in Nepal as an experiment, that experiment looks like a failed experiment. Why? Because politically there have been 13 or more government changes. It's a circle of coalition coming and going, prime ministers coming and going. There's no stable government. Beside, the people who have been the prime ministers there, people in the important position have been involved in corruption cases, huge corruption cases against them. Okay. Apart from it, if you see, the economic condition is not good. Unemployment is rampant. Inflation is rampant. Unemployment has reached to the level that the youth of the country are leaving Nepal. It's a 30 million people country. It's a small country. And about 65,000 young people leave Nepal every month. Every month. That's a very huge number for a country of 30 million people. That is the scenario in Nepal. There is no stability, there is no political or economic stability in Nepal. Then why would people support the democracy? They were better off when the king was ruling. And there were demands from several pockets for the coming back of the king. Now the king, Gyanendra Shah, he also wants to come back. He also wants the palace. So he is not saying it openly, but he is moving around the country. And he's sort of, in bits and pieces trying to tell them that, you protest for me. I want to be back. So left parties are totally against him. But Prajatantra Party and there are several other parties which are in support of him. They say that king is a jewel on the Nepal's democracy. And it will be very good to have a monarchical democracy than a republican democracy. So this is something which is going on, and now we are going to investigate the reason of why this is happening. I've already told you the background. Now coming to this slide, the politicians have enjoyed immunity from investigation since 2006. 2005 he came, 2008 the monarchical system was abolished and republican democracy was established in Nepal. Now Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli faces a contempt case for ignoring a Supreme Court order. 3 former PMs, Prime Minister, 3 former Prime Minister, including Sher Bahadur Deuba, are accused of corruption. Deuba's wife is linked to a fake refugee scam involving Bhutanese national. So when all these things are happening, people are thinking that it will be better if the king comes back. At least he can put these people on line. But people are innocent. People do not know that what can king do, and king has already done. When in 2005 he got the power, he abolished everything. He diluted the parliament. He have sent politicians to jail. There is a huge chance that history may repeat itself. Future of Nepal's political system. Many believe a return of monarchy would expose the past political corruption. So people in one or the other way, they are tired of the democracy there. A democracy is a beautiful system, but it needs cooperation, and the machinery has to be well-oiled machinery. Such cases like corruption cases against the authority of Prime Minister, it's a bad thing. The person has to be honest. The person has to be, there shall not be any kind of allegations against him. Allegations of the nature of corruption sounds very bad against the authority of Prime Minister. So that does not mean that the Prime Minister starts to suppress these kind of allegation, but should come out and let the investigation happen. And if he has really done something wrong, then of course he will not let the allegations happen, the investigation to take place. He will not allow the allegations to be there and let the investigation take place. So that is what is happening, and that is the reason why people in Nepal wants the monarchy back. The government's refusal to negotiate may prolong Nepal's crisis. Some fine has also been imposed on Gyanendra Shah, some 7,93,000 on because of whatever has happened. He has been held responsible. Army has also been called. Future royalist protest could push for a dialogue and political reform. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Now, this is another news, very important news, Donald Trump's global tariff announcement. Now, this global tariff, Donald Trump wants to earn money through tariffs. Now, what is this tariff? Simply explaining, if you import something into the country, there is a fees for that import. Let's say if Harley Davidson, that's a bike, it's a beautiful bike. You must have seen Undertaker from WWE coming into the ring on Harley Davidson. It became famous in India, and now too many people, especially you can see on the streets of Delhi and the roads of Delhi, people are riding this Harley Davidson. This is all coming from the United States. The moment it enters India, for example, its price is 10 lakh rupees. We are talking in rupees. Government imposes 50% tariff on this. So the price becomes 15 lakh. Okay, 15 lakh. 5 lakh goes to the government because that is the tariff, that is the tax which the government is imposing. And the consumer has to pay totally 15 lakh. Now, because the prices have increased, people sometimes do not want to buy it. And if you reduce the prices, if you reduce the tariff, then there will be more demand of that product. So now Donald Trump is saying when the whole world imposes tariff on the US exports, then why should Donald Trump not do it? His advisors are saying that countries like China are earning too much from the United States, and imposing tariff would increase the government's revenue, because China is in a way dependent on United States also for its export. China is exporting to the whole world, but the maximum export goes to United States. United States, the biggest importer of Chinese products. So by imposing a tariff, this problem can be taken. And he is giving it some name. Donald Trump will announce global reciprocal tariff. Now, point is, he is saying this will be global tariff. On which country will you put more tariff and on which country will put less tariff? Maybe there will be categories of countries. One kind of country would be China, on whose product huge tariffs will be imposed. Another kind of countries would be the friends of the United States there in the Western world, European countries. But let's see what happens. We do not know the details as of now. It is going to come on 2nd of April. Let's see what happens. And he is calling it a liberation day. He is thinking that too much money will be earned. The revenues of the US government will increase by imposing tariffs. Good idea, but there may be shortfalls to this idea also. Unclear how reciprocal tariff will be calculated for each country and could impact the stock market inflation and global interest rate. So since US currency and US market is in a central position throughout the world, whatever happens in the United States impacts the stock markets throughout the world, impacts inflation throughout the world, and at the same time global interest rates. What do you mean by global interest rates? Like RBI, it decides the interest rates, repo rate, reverse repo rate. Similarly, all the central bank of different country decides those repo rates. So the rates on which you can take loan, the rates on which the government, the banks take loan from RBI, all those things are going to be affected by these decisions throughout the world between the banks of one country and the central bank of that country. That arrangement may be impacted. Now, the problem Trump wants to solve. So the point is that US faces a trade deficit. Trade deficit, that simply means too many products are imported to the United States whereas the exports are less. If you see its equation with China, too many Chinese products come into the market of the United States, whereas the export of the United States to China is comparatively less. Hence, there is a trade deficit. So Trump believes that the US dollar is overvalued, and because of this overvaluation of the US dollar, the exports of the United States are suffering, and because of that suffering of the exports, US is unable to earn money. The private sector, the government, none of them are able to earn money. Okay. Now, what will tariffs do? Tariffs on one hand will increase the revenue of the government, that is one thing. Second, it is going to discourage the international products and will boost the local demand. The person who is living in US and wants something would not look to a cheaper product coming from China, but rather he will or she will look around and see the American manufactured products, because the American rates will then be competitive because of the tariffs. Okay. So because of this overvaluation of the US currency, and it is overvalued, reason is it's the currency which is central to everything happening around the world. If you see gold, if you see coffee, all these things are sold only, oil sold only in the US dollar. Okay. Does not matter from which country it is originating. How many dollars a barrel oil? How many dollars are, all these things, coffee, which is an important thing, gold, which is a very important thing as far as the currency go, bullion, and oil, all these things are sold and purchased in terms of dollar. So dollar holds a very central position in the world, and because of this dollar and its strength and its overvaluation, US is suffering. Okay. That is what is the point of Donald Trump. So what is the solution he is bringing? That I am going to impose tariffs, reciprocal tariffs. That if you impose tariffs on American product when they enter your country, I am going to impose tariffs on your product when it enters my country. That's reciprocal tariff. So strong dollar hurts the US workers by making imports cheaper and exports costly. Economic perspective on dollar overvaluation. So this is something which is, historically US has tried to look after this problem through this one particular Plaza Accord in 1985. What happened in Plaza Accord? US devalued its currency to balance the trade with Germany and Japan. Okay, but it cannot do it. It devalued its currency in comparison to the Japanese currency and the German currency in order to balance the trade, but could not happen. It did not take place, it failed in a way. So now, in order to understand this tariff thing, Trump's tariff example of steel market, we have come up with an example. Think about a situation where a state in the United States, any state, California or New York or any other state, it wants steel. So it has to purchase steel. The people who are working, the construction companies are there. It needs steel. Steel is a very important product for infrastructure development. All kind of infrastructure development nowadays, the physical infrastructure development needs steel. Now, take for an example, steel is needed somewhere in the United States. Of course, looking at the market mechanism, the person who needs steel will buy it from the source which is cheaper. Now, China, this is a steel company of China which sells steel in the United States at the rate of $800 per ton. And this is the steel company of the United States which sells steel at around $1,000 per ton. So of course, this is cheaper and the person is going to buy from Chinese company. Now what Donald Trump is saying is a very simple thing, that I am going to impose a tariff on the imports. So if Donald Trump imposes $200 tariff on the Chinese imports, Chinese exports and imports to the United States, this price will increase to $1,000, $800 plus $200 tariff. Okay, so this will also be $1,000, or the tariff may increase further and the Chinese product may become more expensive than the US product. And two things: one, this is going to improve the revenues of the government. This $200 will go into the pockets of the government, and at the same time this is also going to boost the local demand. A person in the United States who needs steel will buy steel from the US company rather than buying it from a Chinese company. But there is another angle to it. There's another angle to it, you'll understand. That is called currency offset. What if China devalues its currency? Devaluing the currency of China. If China devalues its currency, it can sell the steel now, not in $800 but in $600, because it has devalued its currency. That's what US tried to do in Plaza Accord, devalue the currency so that imports become competitive. $600 and plus $200 of tariff. The Chinese steel would still be $800, very much competitive, way below the prices which are in the United States. By a company who is producing steel in the United States, this price is still very, very competitive and cheaper. So China can play this game. Now, where United States can fail, one thing, if US wants to do this, imposing tariff, so the market of the US, if you see, people were getting steel at $800 because of imposition of tariff, which is going to fill the pockets of the government. But look at the end result. Look at the end result. All the people in the US will be getting steel at $1,000. They buy from the US company or they buy from the Chinese company. Finally, the inflation is going to increase. Okay, the end user has to pay more. That is something which is to be seen. That there was another scenario here. The scenario was if currency offset take place. That means if China devalues its currency, it can still become competitive. And what if China doesn't devalue its currency? If there is no currency offset, then the prices are going to become more and more for the end users. Okay? And inflation will increase in the United States. So the big lesson is, if China adjusts its prices, currency offset, the tariff will not matter. It will do nothing. Okay? If it doesn't adjust, American consumers has to pay more. I hope you have got this idea. Tariffs can be a backfire, making things expensive for regular people instead of helping businesses. So this idea of Donald Trump is not based on some economic philosophy, but sometimes these are also, concerns which are coming from one section of people, but they may not be the concerns of the whole country. Maybe there can be opposition of the steps taken by Donald Trump because of the increase of inflation, because of tariffs. Anything can happen, we do not know about it. Okay, so this was the class. There were three important topics, one on the nuclear deal and the developments which are happening in the nuclear deal, where the technology transfer can now take place from the United States to India for the development of small modular reactors. companies like Holtec, L&T and Tata will be getting technology from US to develop small modular reactors here in India, technology transfer and manufacturing boosting. Second thing, the situation in Nepal, it's worsening and people want their king back because of the rampant corruption, the economic situation and the migration of the youth from that country to another country to find jobs and a livelihood. And third one was the tariff, which reciprocal tariff which Donald Trump is about to announce on 2nd of April. So thank you very much for joining me in this class. Have a nice day. Jai Hind.